And we're live everywhere. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. We're live everywhere. So now we're live. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me as we continue to talk about sex in the workplace. And something just popped up on my stream, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the feedback we're getting. And thank you so much for joining us. It's like Monday, right? And so it looks like nobody's available. Is everyone on vacation? I could just go back to sleep or something. I feel like I need to be on vacation. I have had the most interesting week in terms of what's going on. So if you feel you need to join me, sure, pipe in. Just pipe in. So this morning we're going to have Sex in the Workplace Part 2. And we've talked about sex last week, and we talked about sex in the workplace, but this time we're getting it from a man's perspective. What does a man view as sex in the workplace? Because so often when we talk as women, you guys think that we either don't get it, or we're more focused on you, or it's just you, when in fact it isn't just you. So I want to make sure that we have it covered, that we're not just talking about you, but we're talking about everyone. So it's not just from a woman's perspective, it's from a man's perspective. I find today that the playing field needs to be leveled. Uh, and we find that people want equal parts. The good thing about social media is that everyone gets to express their opinion, right? And everyone uh, gets to say how they feel, and people feel as if they're part of the big picture, right? Whereas before it was kind of confined. If you weren't notable, if you weren't noted, then you couldn't have you couldn't have an opinion or express your opinion in any way, right? And so now we're talking to people, and everyone now has an opinion. I'm sorry, I'm tweeting at the same time or whatever. So forgive me. And I'm interested in hearing how people feel about this, because we are trying to see, I'm trying to figure out if, I know it's still happening. People are still having sex in the workplace. We all know that it's happening. Otherwise, the high rate of divorce would not be so high, right? So I want to talk about that. But before I do that, um, I didn't want to go there this morning, but yesterday, my friend Dr. Linda Tarver, Dr. Tarver, had a discussion on the local Fox 2 channel, Let It Rip. And in that discussion, she talked about $15 per hour minimum wage, and that was the crux of the conversation. What happens? And she gave an interesting opinion, wherein she said that is $15 an hour minimum wage is great for states like California and New York, where people earn a lot more, where businesses have higher populations so they can generate more business. But it's not great for a state like Michigan. And I thought about it, and I said, that's a well reasoned argument. I mean, think about it. I'm a small business owner. I couldn't, with the grants and so on and donations, I couldn't have my entire staff pay them $15 an hour. I'm reliant on grants and public and funding to be able to continue to do what I do. So I couldn't be sustainable at $15 an hour, right? But while she was on the discussion, we're going to talk some more about that in the week. Uh, the host on the Fox News show actually referred to Dr. Tarver as ignorant. Not cool. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow and talk about why that should have happened and why that was not a good idea. I mean, we can't be dismissive. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that I say something derogatory about you to your face, and especially when millions of people are watching. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But and we'll talk about the $15 an hour minimum wage and what it means. I think it's a great. I think it's good for California and New York. But I don't know. I think each state should set it based on. Imagine a state like Mississippi, Alabama, or Arkansas paying 50. People wouldn't get work. They would have 0 hours to work because they couldn't pay it, right? I think you should leave it up to employers to say, leave it up to the government, the state government, to say this is what is good. The minimum wage should not be lower than $9.50 an hour or $10 an hour. And then leave it up to corporations to say how much they can pay, right? And in some of these industries, like the fast food industry, the turnover is extremely high. It's difficult to deal with the public. The turnover is high. The companies are in the business for making profits, so they don't really employ people full time anyway. They don't give them 40 hours per week. So if you demand that they be paid $15 per hour, they'll work 1 hour per day. Good luck with that. So we'll talk about it and so on and see where it comes from. Because sometimes we just jump on bandwagons because it sounds good and people know how to write opinions and create verbiage that sounds really interesting and sounds good. But the truth of the matter is that in actuality, it's not feasible. And the execution of it is not feasible. So we'll talk some more about that, right? All right. So if I'm looking at you on Twitter and it looks like, hey, Periscope and Twitter, if it looks like I'm not looking at you, my camera is turned a different way, but I am looking at you, right? So we'll talk some more about that in just a moment as we wait on Wade to join us. And we talk about sex in the workplace. So what happened on your weekend? Here in the Midwest, in Detroit, we had excessive heat. I think it started Thursday and Friday and Saturday. It peaked on Saturday. Oh my God, Friday and Saturday were so hot. It was really hot Thursday, but Friday and Saturday was unbearable. I went out because it's Saturday. I had things to do. And I kid you not, I couldn't breathe. It was so unbearable. And I'm going like from the building to the car. So it's not like I'm running a marathon or walking around. But just in that short frame of time, it was so unbearable. And somebody said, well, didn't you live in the tropics? And I'm like, the key word there is the tropics. This is not tropical weather here. This is where air sits over the land and is unmovable. And then the air from the atmosphere comes down on top of the air that is sitting over the land. It creates this humidity and this heaviness to the atmosphere that's bad. In the tropics, the air is constantly moving. The wind is constantly moving because the ocean creates a thermal wave that keeps the wind going round and round. Here, the air basically just sits. It's trapped. It's like the air is trapped over the land. That's why when it gets cold here, it stays cold for so long because the air is sitting over the land and it's trapped. It was unbearably hot, but I'm not sure if there are going to be more hot days like that because we're in the northern part of the northern hemisphere here in Michigan. So chances are we might have seen the worst of it, right? Because it's now July, it's mid-July, right? It's the 21st. So chances are we're out of it. Wouldn't that be something? I think so. Wouldn't it be something if we're actually out of it? That would actually be like, hello, Freddie. So my nephews are staying with me for a couple of days. Don't ask how bad it's going. It's not going well. They have me running ragged. So if you see bags under my eyes, that comes from sleepless nights and sleepless other parts. And so my nephew introduced me to a thing on YouTube, a show on YouTube called Friday Nights at Freddy's. Listen to me very carefully. When I should have been here with you Friday morning, guess where I was? Plastered before YouTube watching Friday Nights at Freddy's. And I was glued to it. I'm like, who created this stuff? It's just good, clean, old-fashioned cartoon. Had no sexual innuendo. It was just basic story, good guy versus bad guy, and the good guy won. Just basic story. Nothing about sexual innuendo. They didn't use any F-bombs. They didn't use any curse words. They didn't use any racist tweets. No, nothing. It was just plain good old-fashioned kid time. And I was plastered to that screen for about an hour. Not a peep out of me, no word. I didn't pick up my phone or nothing. I was like, who created it? So to whomever are the creators of Friday Nights at Freddy's, it's on YouTube. I think that's the way to go, because if you try to find kid shows that is age appropriate on the traditional networks, such as the Cartoon Networks and the other ones, you're not going to be successful at it if you don't want your child to regurgitate what is showing on those things. You know what I mean? It's like, is it really kid friendly, or is this for children who are adults? I don't know. It's just not working. So that was something else. So something else that happened over the weekend, I don't know if you realized it, but Miss Michigan World, the young woman who won Miss Michigan, was caught up in a scandal. Did you all see that? A Twitter war was going on where she was stripped of her title. Miss Michigan was going to the Miss America pageant. She was caught up in a scandal because as she won Miss Michigan, as the story evolved, there were some tweets she had made last year. So she was on a talk show yesterday locally here. I was sitting in the studio in the audience, and I had a chance to talk with her afterwards to find out what she meant. She's Asian American, so people are saying that her tweets are racist. But I didn't have an opinion on it. I waited to hear what she had to say because I wanted to see where she was coming from with it. I found out that she has not a malicious bone in her body. She had meant no malice. She was just making a commentary. And as Dawood said, the gentleman from the Council of American Islamic Relations, as he said, we're so quick to cancel people for something that they say, and we just totally cancel them and make them irrelevant, that we need to re-examine that. We need to re-examine the whole content of the person than just quickly get rid of them because they said something out of place. When I listened to what she said and read what she wrote, it didn't sound racist to me. I mean, she just said that she was at a booth. They asked her to wear a hijab. She's Asian American. They asked her to wear a hijab. And you know what she said? All she said was, is hijab an accessory now? I thought that had to do with a religious observation. And if it does, then it's not for me. Is something wrong with it? Something wrong with her saying that? No, there's nothing wrong with her saying that. She's expressing her opinion. Is she entitled to her opinion? Yes. Then she said, somebody else said, well, you shouldn't talk about that because you have no understanding of crime. And she said, well, there's a lot of black on black crime in the black community. How come no one is talking about that? That's also not racist. Contextually speaking, there is black on black crime. We need to talk about it and need to talk about it in the context of violence and crime in general. Is there historically, because she was defending police officers, she was saying people are getting on the police about killing black people when there's a lot of black on black crime. The truth of the matter is that black men are 4 times more likely to die at the hands of a white police officer than white men are. That's a statistic. But within the context of what she was saying, she was not being racist. She was just making what? A social commentary. Leave her alone. She's 20. She'll get it. She's a public figure now. When she said that, she was just a student at a university. She's a public figure now. She will say it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's her opinion. She's entitled to her opinion. Everybody has an opinion. That's why we live in a democracy. That's what being in a democracy is about. We need to become we need to listen to people and listen to where their intent is coming from, as opposed to what it says. If you listen to it, you listen for the malice involved. If there is a malice involved, then that's what you address, because the malice is the problem. But you don't address someone just making a social commentary or observation. The reason I know this is because that happens to me. I think it was about a year or so ago, my friend Wade McCree, who is supposed to be joining us in just a few, invited me to his radio show, and we were talking about how young folks, especially young black people, emerging from college and going into workspaces are not as prepared as they should be. They don't have what we refer to as social capital, how to groom themselves, present themselves, and so on, and how that impacts their ability to move forward. I was talking about it. I kid you not. And somebody called in who actually is a teacher at a local high school, and she told me off. She said I had no right to say that young black men are not prepared. Can you believe it? She was ready to jump on a bandwagon to jump me and she to judge me, and she had no idea that I myself was a single parent, that I raised two children by myself. Do you see what I'm saying? She canceled me without even listening. I was trying to help. She didn't think so. The problem with this generation I'm finding is that nobody wants advice. They don't know how to do anything. They're totally messed up and discombobulated, everything that works. And nobody wants advice. Nobody wants to hear that you can do it better. They don't take advice from their parents. That's why they end up getting pregnant at 15, because they're not listening. They drop out of college when parents are telling them you need to finish college. And that's why 20 years later, still can't get it together. I kid you not. Nobody wants to listen to the pastor. Nobody wants to listen to the priest. They definitely are not going to listen to the police, so they're going to end up before the judge. And even in the courtroom where the judge is handing down sentencing, they're still cursing the judge out. That is not to say that it's for all young people today, but a vast majority of folk are very dismissive when it gets to a certain point. They're very dismissive of people. I don't want to hear it. I am grown. Have you heard that? I'm grown. I can do whatever I want. Not understanding that your decisions have consequences. Just like that young lady, the former Miss America, learned yesterday, that once it's out there, and that what you say has consequences. She's learned her lesson from that, and she's willing to move forward. She did not mean it maliciously, because after all, she's a minority herself. I embraced her and told her, I don't have any issues with you at all. I see what you're saying, and I feel that you have your opinion, and express your opinion. And she has fire. This is someone who is going to be good in politics in a few years. That's someone who has fire. That's what we need, right? So with all of that, I kid you not, go and listen, read her tweets. She's Miss Michigan World. She's on Twitter, and it was quite the thing. We gotta be more inclusive. We can't just cancel people just because we don't agree with what they say, right? Walter Stretch Robinson, good morning. Thanks everybody for joining me. Everybody, say something. And just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I'm going to call you a name. Is that fair? No, that's not fair for me to call you a name just because I disagree with you. I can't say you're ignorant, like the anchor on Fox 2 said to my friend Dr. Tara yesterday. You can't call someone ignorant just because you disagree with their opinion. You are the anchor or the co-anchor. You have a responsibility to say, well, a better way to look at it would be this. Or you can just say, is that how you feel? And leave it at that. But you don't just, you're ignorant and dismiss people. What's with that? That's unprofessionalism in that context, because you're doing it as a professional in a professional setting. But the young Miss America woman, the young woman who is Miss Michigan America, she's just a person who has an opinion. There was nothing racist about what she said. She was quoting facts. Is that racist? This society is so touchy-feely. Oh my God. Everything has to be politically correct. Everything has to fall within these parameters. And if it's not, you're anti-this. People are so quick to jump you up and label you as anti-gay, anti-LGBT, anti-black, anti-white, anti, everything but. Whereas the point of a democracy is what? That you get a chance to express your opinion without killing one another. Isn't that what this is all about in the first place? I had to remind myself of that as I look at what other countries are doing. I'm like, isn't that yesterday when we were sitting in the green room? That's what we were talking about. Isn't that what this is about? That you get to express your opinion, and at the end of the day, we can still go sit down and have a cup of coffee. That's exactly what we did. Some of us did, by the way, right? go sit down and have a cup of coffee. That's what it is all about, right? Shake hands, embrace one another, and still go have a cup of coffee. We need to bring that kind of discourse back. We need to bring that kind of courtesy and that kind of recognition of the other person's ability to have their opinion, to express their opinion, and appreciation for their presence themselves, that they have an opinion. We're too dismissive of human beings today. Don't you agree? We're too dismissive. People don't like it. Oh, I don't like to be here. It's the same attitude we're taking into our relationships. We get married and I don't like what you do, so I'm going to divorce you anyway. People have sex randomly. They don't think about the consequences. Then they get pregnant. Then boom, well, just go down to the abortion clinic and just kill a whole other human being off. Because it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Right? And I'm not talking about people who are 17, 18, and early 20s. I'm talking about people who have, we've been here for a while, right? We're way too dismissive. Way too dismissive. We need to come back to center, right? Come back to center. Come back to center. Lord, last week when I was talking about sex in the workplace, somebody on YouTube, actually, I told you guys that, right? Wanted me to flash him. And he was saying a lot of stuff, but there are filters on YouTube. And apparently I had attached some filters so I wouldn't see some of the stuff, but I'm going to probably re-edit that. And YouTube actually had to contain some of what he said. But I don't, and he was typing it in another language. I think it was a language I didn't recognize because I didn't recognize the characters in how it was written, in how the words were written. And they had to redact a lot of what they said. YouTube gave me a notification that they had to withhold it. People today do not have any appreciation for what someone else has done or accomplished. I keep saying this all the time, when we were growing up, we were taught to appreciate someone else's journey and their accomplishments. Today, it's like, I don't give a care. If you're not on Instagram with 50 million followers, if you're not on Instagram showing most of your body all the time, that is the standard today. And I can't say that I blame the Kardashians. They just tapped into something that was there and perpetuated it and made it a whole industry and made it a whole concept. It's now a thing where if you are not showing off your body parts and if you are not having sex on camera, then, and 50 million followers on Instagram, whether that is real or not, then you are not significant. I see people claiming to be public figures just because they have a lot of followers. And I'm like, what have you contributed to the public good? Do you see what I'm saying? And so a lot of you are going to say, well, you're just ranting and ranting. But this is exactly what it is. We have to bring civility back. We have to bring civility back. If we don't, we're going to run into a society where someone else is going to determine what the boundaries are. And we don't want that. We enjoy this as a democracy for a reason, right? It's just much in the same way that you want to hand down $15 an hour as a minimum wage. But to sustain that, what you would do, you're not telling the people that to hand down $15 as a minimum wage, what you're doing, what you would have to do is to cut out a lot of the government grants and loans that are given to community-based agencies that provide services to the people. So where the government falls off, community-based aid, the government gives money to community-based agencies to provide services to victims of crime and to provide services to other members in the community, seniors, for instance, childcare, for instance, right? Small business loans, for instance. Those would have to be eliminated from the federal budget in order to sustain $15 an hour. Does that make sense to you? No. Because you want to make a political point? It was just like mass incarceration was a bad idea. It was a bad idea. 25 years later, mass incarceration was a bad idea then, and now we're feeling the effects of it. You don't just lock up people and just take a whole group of people and lock them up and create a culture around that. And now here we are today, right? Right? So I'm not on a political platform. I'm just saying some of the stuff the Democrats have done, they need to be held accountable for that stuff. They need to be held accountable for some of the stuff that they have done that has not worked in the favor of the very people they're seeking votes from. The very people that they claim they support are the very people whom their own policies. And people need to wake up and start looking at this not through the lens of emotion, but look at it through the lens of practicality and for what works. It makes no sense whatsoever. I really had to sit down and really sit back and look at some of this stuff. And I'm like, if you started mass incarceration, then why am I supporting you? That means my nephews are at risk under your care, under your administration. My nephews, my cousins, my children's nephews, my children's children who are sons, right? My friends' sons, my cousins' sons. I have a boatload of relatives. They're all at risk for mass incarceration based on a policy that you implemented 25, 27 years ago. Now you're going to come and smile and say you want to look at people like me? Does that make sense? It's time to wake up. We need to look at this through other lens. And then by the same token, you can't just cancel everybody. It's not just that they said one thing. You have to look at what is their track record over time. If they consistently had policies that were marginalizing a specific group of people, then that's how they think. It's a thinking. It's a way of life. It's a perspective. Right? But it's way too early for this, isn't it? It's way too early. It's Monday. Right? Don't get me started. I mean, it's been something to think about for some time. You know, it's much like wading into the dialogue and the conversation about sex in the workplace. We started it because there were too many cases where women were being taken advantage of in the workplace, right? There were too many cases where women were being at a disadvantageous position because someone else who was in authority was determining the boundaries and where she could exist if she did not give it up, right? If she chose not to have sex with someone in authority. So we implemented sexual harassment with a view to defining what is appropriate language, because there are some people for whom no boundaries exist. There are some people for whom you are not a person as an individual with some autonomy of choices. You are someone who can do whatever. So they implemented sexual harassment and made that pervasive so that here are the guidelines, here are the boundaries. Then you had another group of people who said, well, if he looks at me funny, girl, they look at me all the time. They say things all the time. Over my lifetime, I probably, like every woman on this planet, have been sexually harassed more times than I want to count. We got to put things into perspective, right? It's not everything that everyone says is criminal. We should criminalize. It's not every act that should be criminalized. We need to take a look at it and look at the totality of the situation and determine if this is a pattern. If the person has a pattern, then that's what needs to be emphasized. I think that's what got Harvey Weinstein in trouble. It wasn't one time, it wasn't two times. He had a lifetime of issues. He had a pattern. But in that, a lot of people who just said something one time and did something one time got caught up. No, is once enough? Yeah. When they push you to the point where they're going to rape you for it, that's enough, right? But because he had a pattern, Harvey Weinstein, because he had a pattern, he had to go. He had to be disciplined because he had a pattern of multitudinous people whom he took advantage of just because he could and he felt like he had the power. Now, that's one scenario. But what about the boss, your supervisor, your boss who got it into his or her head that having sex with an employee, right? Having sex with someone whom he feels more powerful than is okay. Let me give you a scenario. So my daughter, I'm going to use my daughter. She's 26 now, right? So let's say she goes to work somewhere and there are men around her, right? And all of a sudden, oh, well, don't use her as an example because her scenario is different. I mean, they're different people, right? But I'm going to put myself in this scenario. Say I just got out of college and I go to work, and obviously the people around me are more powerful, right? Because I just started at this company to work. And The people around me are more powerful. And I dress how I dress to go to work. I wear appropriate work, appropriate clothing. So I'm not wearing skirt down to my ankles because I'm a millennial and this is what they sell in the stores today. So I put it on, I go to work, right? When I go to work, this man who is my boss, he's always seeking me out. It starts out like this. He seeks you out and he compliments you, but he's always touching you, whether he's touching you at your elbow, putting his hand on your arm, touching you. And then sometimes he would say things like, why don't you, can we work on this? Do you have some time this evening? Can we work on this? And because you're interested in doing the work, because you want to score points with the leadership, you don't want them to think that you're not available because you're really there to make money and to look for a promotion, you're going to say yes initially. And the first time, nothing is going to happen. So you can't really say he came on to you or say anything. But the second time that it happens, you feel funny. And he's going to order out pizza, or he's going to say, is there anything you'd want? So you're still thinking that this is all about work. But then while you're standing in the break room, he starts asking you about where you live, just casual questions, who you live with, because he's trying to figure out, is there a male person around who is going to be a threat, right? And then while he listens to your conversations, before you know it, he puts it down and he gropes you. It grabs me by my body parts. Is that sexual harassment? Yes. He created an environment for it to happen. It's not a hostile environment yet. So I'm shocked. I'm like, stop, please. Don't go any further. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I misunderstood. I crossed the line. I'm sorry. So you're trying to figure out, maybe he was just being nice. I don't want to say anything yet. So I wouldn't say anything, right? So I go back to work the next day. Well, the next day, I found out that I'm not on his team anymore. He has reassigned me to another team. But on this team, I have less responsibilities, right? So I'm thinking maybe he's being protective. But then within another couple of days, I suddenly find myself with reduced responsibilities all around. So the intended message is, does she realize that as a result of what she didn't do, this is why she is? So I go into his office and I said, yeah, I've noticed that, and he's like, oh, there's no problem. There's no problem at all. We're just redesigning and re-imaging the field. Are you hearing me? These things happen. I'm role-playing a scenario that I have familiar with because I know that this has happened to someone. I just can't disclose the details. And then what happened is, when she finally realized what had happened, by the time she decided to go to HR, guess what? She had no job. She was given a choice whether she had to. This is true story. She was given a choice whether she would give it up. The woman was married. Whether she should give it up or whether she should leave the company. And she was married. So she began to work late at night because they were both married and they needed both incomes to make it. They were young people. Both of them had just graduated college. They had young children in the home and they had student loans like everybody else. They're just trying to make it. But what happened was, it started with her parents were always like, why is she always late to pick up the kids? And the husband was like, she's working late. Well, the parents were like, well, why is she always working late? And she could not say that the reason she was working late was because she was under pressure at work from her boss. I kid you not, this happened. I learned of this about 4 months ago. And so by the time I heard about it, I was like, it's time for you to let HR know. Because now he's forcing you to be compromised. And the straw that broke the camel's back was when he grabbed her the second time. That's when she ran out, and on her way home, she called her husband, and you know how this would have turned out. This could have been a whole other story that he was going to go postal. He was ready to go postal when everybody had to say, no, let the process justify, let the process work, let the process do the work, right? And so she won because when she filed the complaint, turns out there had been other complaints about this person. In fact, the people who hired him did not do enough of a due diligence to find out that he had done it at another company. I kid you not, in another city. They did not do due diligence to find that out. They had to let him go because he had a clear pattern of harassment. To him, it seems the guy had a problem where he was just, tripping over himself. No, he had a problem where he seemed to enjoy sex in the workplace. He seemed, and to the detriment of all others. And he was married, by the way. He was married. It was this poor girl. You have no idea. By the time it was all said and done, she had to take time off from work. The stress, because when her husband asked her, "Why didn't you say anything?" She said, "How could I? We needed the money." Do you see what I'm saying? So she needed the money. She's aware that the family needed the money, and she was compromised. That's sex and what is that about? That's power and control. I'm really laying it out so that you see, right? Now, it's a different thing when you and, boy and girl meet on the job, and girl or boy and boy together meet on the job, and you're both on the same level, and you develop an interest in one another. So you're going to go out and have fun, and that's a whole different thing. That is not encouraged either, because guess what? When you break up, it's going to impact the harmony in the workplace, right? It's going to impact how the work is executed and impact others because people are going to take sides. But basically, it's going to impact the productivity levels of both people who probably are good employees. So sex in the workplace is frowned upon for a number of reasons. From an employer's point of view, it's frowned upon because it's not healthy. I mean, people like, maybe it's just sex, you're having sex. Maybe you don't like that person, then you choose to go have sex with someone else. Somebody else feels bad about it, so they start acting out. So for those reasons, employers frown upon it. It usually doesn't end well. Very rarely do they ride off into the sunset together and get married, and you're like, okay, that one worked out. More often than not, people end up having to leave a job, leave a company because of the pressure. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to have sex in the workplace, you meet somebody whom you like, at least they should be like 2 floors down, right? They are not in the next cubicle over, because you go out with them and then you don't like it. And then the whole office knows about it and you feel bad. So it affects your ability to perform. It affects your productivity level. The other things that it affects is your upward mobility, because now they might not like it. Listen to me very carefully. I met a young man I think it was last year at my bank. Lovely young man, bright future. I really liked him. I liked him a lot. I could see a great future. He was 28. So I asked the question, "Are you thinking of getting married soon?" And he was horrified. He said, "Why would I do that?" And I said, "Because it's good for your upward mobility." And he said, "How?" And I said, "Look at it this way. In today's world, if you are single and a male in the workplace, and you have some position or authority," because in his position, he was a level up above, the people who were tellers. I said, "Guess what's going to happen? You are a sexual harassment lawsuit walking. So to the powers that be, they're not going to promote you as long as you stay single, because chances are you're having coffee or dating one of the girls out here." He didn't answer. So I said, "So here I go. I'm right again." And you're all laughing. And it turned out to be true. He ended up leaving the job because he said that the excuse he gave was that he wasn't moving up. I said, "But for you to move up, you have to get married." Ladies and gentlemen, tell this to your sons and your young sons and your nephews. If you are working in a corporate structure and you are young, get married, because a person who is married is perceived by the powers that be that you are more emotionally stable. Most likely the spin-offs are that you're going to earn more because you're a family man. They will invite you into their caucuses more because you're not what? A sexual harassment lawsuit walking. They know that if you're single, 9 out of 10, you'll be dating someone on the job. Someone else is not going to like it because you break up with that one and you go be with that one over there, or you go be with Suzanne down there in accounting, or you're probably doing Ashley over here in legal. Wait a minute, but you're also doing Samantha down in advertising? Are you kidding me? In PR? This guy gets around. So what happens is what? You're cut off right here. They're not going to tell you. No one is going to tell you because, again, it's politically correct language. And if you say something, people will say, well, that's why I don't get promoted and blah, blah, blah. But that is why. Sex in the workplace is frowned upon. Now, from a man's perspective, how does a man feel about that? And that's what I want. Where's my friend Wade? He was supposed to chime in, but I guess he had to go run some errands. But from a man's perspective, I can't necessarily speak to that. I want a man to say what it looks like, because for a man, he's just looking at a playing field where there are people to have sex with. Sometimes he doesn't think of the power play because he's comfortable in his role. He doesn't really see it as power, but invariably that's what it is, because if you don't get what you want, you're going to enforce it to get what you want. The same thing is true for a woman, right? The same thing is true for a woman. Hello, right? A woman who is having sex in the workplace is going to have what? If she's in a position of power, what is she going to do? She's going to look at someone who is not as powerful as she is, and what's going to happen? Exactly. Do you see what I'm saying? It's icky, but it's true. It's true. Sex in the workplace it's not a good idea. And can I just ask you this? If you own your own company, how would you feel if your employees were seeing each other or dating each other? Think about that. So let's say you have 10 people working for you, right? And of the 10, Ashley and John start seeing each other. But you know that John used to see Samantha, but he broke up with Samantha. Ashley is new, so she doesn't know about that. So John is interested in Ashley, but he used to date Samantha. What would you do as a boss? Is this time to have sensitivity training all over again? You betcha. You just say it's required action and you start talking about it, right? So that people know the signs and symptoms and know what to look out for, just so they can be guided by it, because you as the employer are going to be blamed for providing an environment that supports sexual harassment, right? A lot of people don't realize how it is. And let's be human here for a minute, right? Let's just be human here for a minute. People who perhaps, let's just be clear, power, when worn, power, the office of power, whether you are the CEO, the vice president, the factory manager, the store manager, the regional manager, power is an allure and a charm. Y'all know that, right? It's charismatic. Most people who are powerful are very charismatic. You've been around powerful people. They're charismatic. It takes a certain charisma, right? And that charisma, is a double-edged sword. That charisma is also a sexual pull. People who are likable are also very sexy. They emit, it lands on some people as they're emitting sexual waves. Let's just be clear about that, right? We tend to admire people who are powerful. And that's where that whole groupie culture come in. You see basketball stars, football stars, have a lot of people, and rock stars, singers, performers, and so on, have a lot of people around them called groupies. People like that feeling of being next to someone who has power, right? So as a man who is sitting in a position of power, you need to be aware of that and to be very careful about it. Even in your own home, your home might be a workplace. You work from home. So Your neighbor, Sally, is a stay-at-home mom, and while your wife is at work, Sally comes over to help do the typing. Home is still a workplace. Before you know it, Sally's doing more than the typing. Sally's married. You're married. The lines become blurred. But home, your home is still a workplace. Let's say you have an au pair in your home, a nanny who takes care of your children. Be very careful. Your home is a workplace for that person. So you have to be careful about what happens. Be careful about sexual innuendo or what people perceive to be sexual innuendo. Confine your conversations and your body language to yourself. Don't touch people. Don't put your hand on people, right? People may misconstrue that. I'm a hugger. When I meet people, I sometimes like to hug people, right? And I have to be really careful about body language. So when I'm hugging, I am hugging from here, nowhere else. I kid you not, because people will misconstrue that. There's one man I know who is well known, and he had a thing when he was hugging women, he would pull them in to his chest. It took me a while to realize that he was copying a feel, that he was just trying to get people to feel their chest. It was only a matter of time before he was found out, right? It made me uncomfortable, so much so that whenever I saw him, I would just be, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, and kept it moving. Be very careful. Your home is, when your home is your workplace, right? The nanny comes into work. What happens, right? You are the power. Guys, you are the power. When you have a housekeeper, your maid, you are the power. You have to be careful about that. So just because your workplace is not somewhere where you go to clock in or 9 to 5, if they come into your home to work, that's still your work. It's still a workplace, right? Be very careful about the language. Don't touch. Don't be so touchy-feely, right? How do men see that? Most men, if they haven't been given sensitivity training, don't even realize that just being casual about how you pose, or just saying, yeah, me and the guys were hanging out last night and we watched this chick flick, or we saw this chick with these boobs. The language. Most men don't realize that. Most men see women coming into their workplace, into spaces, and they don't even realize. My friend Wade is a retired judge. His workplace was a courtroom. People were coming into his courtroom all the time, right? That's a workplace. It's still sex in the workplace. Workplace doesn't have to be your workplace doesn't have to be defined in the traditional mode. Your workplace is anywhere a job is being performed and people are getting paid for it, right? So when you look at it contextual, do you see what I'm saying? So you are 25 and you have your own startup, and you work from your mom's basement, or you work from your garage, your home garage, or from your kitchen. That's still a workplace, right? They may not sue you now, but when you when you get that first IPO, they may come back and sue you for creating a hostile environment in your workplace, right? And a hostile environment is created when people cannot perform, or if they perform, their performance and attributes attached to that performance are based on I don't support, right? That so quickly, there are a few key points I want us to walk away from. Is this, and I want to read this, that sex in the workplace is about power. And to the person who is on the receiving end, it's about power and control. To the person, you just see someone whom you like. But how many of those someones have you liked? Right? You have to step away from it and look at it from that perspective. You're placing your company in jeopardy and placing you in jeopardy. Because in today's world, it leaves a trail that will follow you professionally. So even if you like someone, don't even try to see them outside of work. Go play in another play field. I kid you not. If you are meant to be, you will come together. but don't try to pursue someone because it could impact you negatively. People talk. Just like I told you about the scenario I learned about where the young woman was, they're married and she was trying to hang on to the job just so that she could keep her her home finances going. Well, other people talk. By the time she reported it to HR, guess what? Other people had already created a case with HR to say they did observe that he was giving her special consideration. So to someone else, it looked like it was special consideration. To her, it was, oh my God, I had to do it. If I didn't do it, I couldn't keep my job. Right? Giving people special favors. Be very careful how you, in today's workplaces, one of the things that I really am admiring is how offices are made out of totally of glass. That means nobody has any couch in their offices. Offices are totally made of glass. That means everyone can see what is going on. I admire that. It levels the playing field and it gives all of us some reassurance that when your boss calls you in, they're literally going to haul you across the carpet for performance, but they're not going to haul you across, put you on the carpet for something else. Sometimes sex in the workplace is very subtle. It's not done in so many words, but it is suggestive that if you want to get ahead, you have to give up something. And the pressure is placed on the receiving end to deliver so that you can move ahead. That's never a good thing. Say never a good thing. Never, ever a good thing. No one wants to be in a position like that, right? We all want to be recognized for what we are and who we are. We want to be recognized because what we are is, I'm a person with an engineering degree. I'm a person with a communications degree. I'm a person with a degree in social media. We want to be recognized for that. We want to be recognized because I have a medical degree or I have a law degree or I have a teaching certificate, whatever. We want to be recognized for that. We don't want to be recognized because last night I was played out on your conference room table. That's never a good thing, right? We can't romanticize it or glorify. Rarely does it end where people ride off into the sunset happily ever after. More often than not, it's a lawsuit. It's always a lawsuit waiting to happen. Just like with that young man, when I told him that he should get married, commit to someone and, show up at work events with someone, talk about her, have her picture on your desk. That's my fiance. We're going to get married. It helps you to move up the ladder because the other end of it is that it's very subtle. They're not going to tell you. And in fact, if you go to most people, they're going to deny that this is a reality. But you will find that you will move faster ahead. Now, to most women, it's going to look like men seem to get ahead faster, even when they have had a sexual harassment complaint. Yes, that is a reality. That is true. I can't deny that. That is true. Why does that happen? Because the people who make those decisions tend to view the man or the person and look at them as if their contribution, their skill set is greater than the complaints. You know what that does to someone else? Is it invalidates your claim. No, I don't want to work for a company like that because I don't want anyone to treat me as if I'm a thing, as if what I just said happened didn't happen. But yes, these things happen. It's the reality of the world we live in. Can we change everything? Not particularly. If it makes you uncomfortable, don't work there. I don't know that you have a right to be there. You can stay there. What is it going to cost you? But as for me, that doesn't sound like somewhere that is deserving of my talent and my gifts. I'm going to move on and find better pastures, right? And like I always say, become an entrepreneur. Always have a side gig, right? Always have a side gig and promote it so that when they don't feel like they like you enough, hey, you have something going on, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? When it comes to the field of work, always have your side gig, always have something that you're working on, right? That is going to generate and give you some help and give you some money to move forward. Never just put all your eggs in one basket and wait on them to deliver, because sometimes, just sometimes, say sometimes it's not all that is cracked up to be, right? All right, I gotta go. It's 11 o'clock. I've taken as much of your time. We got to go. We got to get out of here. Tomorrow is another day. We're going to talk about that $15 an hour, uh, 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 whatever it is, minimum wage. I don't think so. And so we'll talk some more about that. We'll have Wade on at another time. Hope this has been helpful to you. Go to my website, harrietkemmock.com, as well as go to the exodusfoundation.com. We talk about ending human trafficking. We provide services to survivors of human trafficking. Right now, we're looking for folks. Help us to keep this going. We've got to pay the bills, pay to keep the lights on, keep the telephone going, provide services to people who have been victimized, right? Yeah. Maybe someday we might just need to talk in the bigger picture. Why is sex so important? Why do people feel so compelled that they have to have sex? Is it part of our makeup as human beings? Why people go all out? I don't know. We'll talk some more about it, right? So go to my website, theexodusfoundation.com. We are a nonprofit. That means we're recognized by the IRS as a nonprofit. So contributions made to us are entirely tax-free. You can also go to my website. You can find my books anywhere. On Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, anywhere you are in the world, my books are translated into the languages of the world. Get a copy of my book. It helps us to keep it going through the fire, right? So that's Exodus Foundation. That's what we do. You can see that, right? And those are my books right there. Through the Fire is the books, right? All right. Thanks so much. Somebody is posting, but I can't see it. I can't see my posts. Facebook is not showing me what people are saying. So I'm hoping. Hang on one second. Here, finally it loaded. It said, back to the trails. Okay. Workplace romance is inevitable. Wow. Listen to this. Workplace romance is inevitable. The travesty is when the lovers aren't peers. Oh, yes. When one party has such an advantage due to his or her position, then troubles arise. But we cannot ignore the natural attraction that is going to take place. Some companies prohibit it, but it can't be stopped. Is that right? Is that right? Here's the problem with that. I agree with you. People, it's a natural attraction that is going to take place. But you see a man's perspective, ladies? Isn't a man's perspective different? Because to me, workplace romance can be avoided because it never ends well for a woman. But from a man's perspective, he's saying it's inevitable because people are going to be attracted to one another. The dynamic there is this, that you have to look at people's lateral positioning. If you're all horizontally on the same level, and your peers, then that's what, it's not going to hurt. It might affect productivity levels for a specific period of time. But if one person has the advantage, has the upper hand, that's never going to end well. Right? Thanks, Wade. I get it. Thanks so much. Absolutely. I finally see your comment. I'm sorry. Facebook was taking a while to load his comments. And then he said, Miss Zhu, the Asian American woman, allowed her personal views, which are protected by the First and Fourth Amendment, to go go viral. The pageant rules are terribly restrictive, and she simply got caught up in it. Her remarks weren't politically correct. So the pageant, the pageant has rules, and they just said if you say certain things, you can't be a part of it. That's all that was. But she's learned the lesson. That that's what Wade is saying. She has learned her lesson, right? And she must be. We are too swift to be confrontational and antagonistic, especially these young folks. So quick to cast shade and hate on anyone contrary to them. Thank you. Right? It is true. But the young lady, Miss Zhu, the Asian American, I'm recapping it for those who joined later. Miss Zhu, the Asian American who was Miss Michigan World, she was going to the Miss America pageant, but she was stripped of her title by the pageant organizers because the pageant organizers have very strict rules about the behavior and language of participants, and they have the right to do so, right? She had made some comments back in 2018. She said she was at a fair, at a booth fair. This was before she was at the University of Michigan. And she made a comment about the hijab. The hijab is the Muslim headdress worn by women. And she said, is the hijab an accessory? I thought it was representative of a religious viewpoint or a religious uh, uh, headdress. I don't see anything wrong with that. I thought, be that as it may, I don't know that I would want to wear a hijab either. Are you going to say that I'm anti-Muslim because I say I don't want to wear a hijab? What if that's my personal choice, right? The second thing she said, she was saying that people are hating the police because the police were being strict about crime. What about black on black crime? Those are unfortunate comments because statistically speaking, black men are 4 times more likely to be killed in an interaction with the police more than white men. So the statistics are that. So she wasn't being, when I met her, she wasn't being malicious in her comments. She just didn't understand the ramifications of what she said, right? You have to be prepared to take the consequences. Well, part of our culture too is that we have this cancel culture. We're cancel you. If you say something I don't like, immediately you know, pretty soon they're gonna say I'm anti this, I'm anti-gay, I'm anti-LGBT, I'm anti this, I'm anti that, and you're ready to cancel me because I have a view that is different from yours. There are some things that these are my views. They're gleaned from my perspective, from my experiences. So you're going to discredit me because these are my views? You don't have to agree with it. I don't agree with everything you say. Do you know I follow people on Twitter who I don't always agree with, but I am open-minded enough to listen to what they have to say. I think that's where we are missing the boat. We have lost our ability to be open-minded. We have become so closed that we're now saying that if you don't think exactly as I do, you don't deserve to be a member of the society. That's what we're saying. We have totally rendered people irrelevant who are far more relevant. The point of a democracy is to have people's a wide perspective and opinions. Now, I just talked about sex in the workplace. You don't even agree with me. Many of you don't agree with me. Does that mean you're going to discredit me, and say I hate people and people shouldn't have sex in the workplace? I'm saying it's not a good idea because it doesn't end well. That's my opinion. What if your opinion is that, well, it ended well for me. I got married him, or I married her, or I got some fun out of it. I got a few this and that out of it. I am listening to all your opinions. I don't cancel you. Neither should you cancel anyone whom you disagree with. We keep forgetting that. We need to be open-minded. There are some things that I do that I don't always agree with. I listen to my children a lot. I kind of use them as the barometer by which everything else is judged. Right? And so I listen to what they have to say. We need to be open-minded as a society. We're too closed. We just sit there and just think. In other words, what I'm saying is the world does not revolve around me. There's 7.2 billion people on the planet who have an opinion. I need to listen to what they have to say. The world does not revolve around me. This is not the entirety or the totality of my world. You and you and you are. So I listen. Do you know that as a public figure myself, I listen to people's opinions far more than you think? I go to Twitter. I read people's opinions. I read a vast variety of opinions. I listen to a lot of different people. No one is insignificant in my world. I don't care who you are. You can call me. I'm going to listen to you. Now, am I going to necessarily act on it? Is a whole other matter, but I'm going to hear what you have to say. I don't just say, oh, they're insignificant and they're irrelevant. No. We were talking yesterday in the studio of the local radio show, right? A TV show, I'm sorry. We were talking. One thing we all agreed on, you see the president? That's one of the most personable persons you could ever meet. You may not even like the guy and the guy's opinion. But if he walks into a room where you are, by the end of that handshake, he's going to get you to like him. You might even find yourself agreeing with what he has to say. He's that personable. All this stuff that you see is theater and a performance. He's trying to do what? Win people to vote for him so he proves to everybody else that he can do it. That's what it comes down to. But if you were to meet him, you could disagree with him politically, but on a person to person level, you're going to like him. I think that's where we are missing the boat. And I think that's where he's winning and everyone else is not. We can disagree, but it doesn't mean that we have to be dismissive. We can disagree, but this is what this democracy is about. At the end of the day, when we're done disagreeing, we need to be able to shake hands and say, let's go have a cup of coffee. Remember what Jesus said. He said, remember this one thing, this one commandment. This is why I disagree with organized religion in a lot of ways. Yes, I preach and I disagree with them because they're enforcing the Old Testament when it suits them, and they disregard the New Testament when it suits them. Jesus said, the Bible says that, yeah, there are a lot of things written in the Old Testament, but you know what Jesus said before he left? What did he say? If Christianity is based on Jesus Christ, I'm saying, right? He said, this one thing I ask you to do. What did he say? He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor. Who is thy neighbor? That's the crux of of common law as we know it here in the US and in Britain. Who is your neighbor? Your neighbor is not just the person who lives next door to you. Your neighbor is the person standing next to you at the bus stop. The neighbor is the person who is standing next to you while you wait on your Uber. Your neighbor is the person sitting next to you in a restaurant. Your neighbor, for crying out loud, is the person whom you're engaging in a debate. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself. That's what the fundamental crux of Christianity is. Now, they don't want you to think about that. They want you to think about a whole other stuff that they can use emotion to control people's minds and get people to think in a different way than they should be and not focus on the real. As my daughter would say, the real. What is the real? The real is what? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If we can get back to that and focus on that, then I think we would be arriving and getting somewhere, right? It's one of the things that I disagree with organized religion about. You want to get a lot of people into a building, and then you want to tell them about Malachi 3:8. When over here in the New Testament, it says something else. But that's a different discussion for a different day. We'll talk about that on a different day. Will I ever have a church someday? Yeah. But it's going to be what? Come as you are. If you leave some money, fine. If you don't, I'm not going to hate you and tell you you're going to be cursed with a curse. Come on now, right? So we got to get back to this open-minded stage. It's part of what control is to control people's thoughts and opinions so you guide them to a reality that you want to control the outcome of. We're clear on that, right? Okay, so being clear on that, then, we need to recognize that there are some things that we have to think. This is why I say to you all, could you do all of us a favor? And at the end of the day, turn your TV off. Put the phone down, turn it over. 20 minutes before you go to bed at night, just tune out. Listen to yourself. Can we do that? Just listen. Let your thoughts listen to what you're thinking so that you have a clear idea what you're to do the next day. That's all. Just do that. 20 minutes every night. I kid you not. I started doing this and saw a change. I was less stressed. I had a better sleeping pattern. Remember a few months ago, I had bags underneath my eyes. I had to say, what am I not doing? I was not disconnected. Oh my God, I was so connected. And I said to myself, start doing this. I tried it for 3 nights straight. And whoa, by the 4th night, I couldn't wait to get in bed. So my process, I start getting ready for bed at 8 p.m. So I don't eat after 8 o'clock. I drink water, right? Or if I feel like having some kind of warm milky drink or something, because milk actually helps you sleep. That's another thing, right? It's because it gives calcium to your brain, because calcium delivers oxygen to the brain. They don't tell you a lot of stuff, right? And so I started drinking water. And I would have a shower. So I have a routine. You know how you have a shower. Well, the process of showering and hearing the water flowing apparently does something to your mind, right? And then you moisturize yourself. And by the time it's time, I could barely crawl into bed. I'm on my knees praying and I'm done. After that, I have enough energy to crawl into bed. And I lay there, and in 20 minutes, I'm out. Gone. Can't, just gone. My mind, I'm thinking and I'm calming down. I think we need to get back to that. If we can start doing that, then your opinions, the way you think about stuff on the issues that matter, will remarkably be affected. You get a clearer picture the next morning when you wake up of what you need to do. And even if you went to the doctor and they gave you a bad report and said something, you still have a clear opinion. Look, none of us are going to be here forever. We all want to control the outcome, and we want to control how we leave here. You know what I say? While you're here, live gloriously, because tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. So if you woke up today and you're breathing, live gloriously, right? Because tomorrow is not promised. None of us know when the hour will come, when the day will come. But I'm not going to live in anticipation of that. I'm going to live making a difference every day while I can. So while you yet live gloriously, right? This has been so interesting. Thank you, Wade, for your perspectives. I really appreciate it. There's something in what you said that struck me, right? When you said that the way we need, that it's inevitable in workplaces for people to be attracted to one another. That's a man's perspective. So, a man is just sitting there like, whoa, this thing that just walked in here. But a woman, how do you look at it? Are you going there looking for a husband, or are you going there to perform a job? I think most women are looking at it. I'm here to work, get my money, go home, take care of my family. But from a man, he's like, well, it's inevitable. I'm going to be attracted to someone. But again, the type of relationship, pay attention to that. Because if it's going to leave you in a place feeling disadvantaged, don't go there. It's not worth it, right? You destroy yourself, destroy your reputation. This may even affect your ability to find other work in the same field and in the same spaces. And the world is too small a place. Have you noticed? You keep encountering the same people? So it may not be a good idea, right? Right? Hope I have helped you. Thank you for staying with me. I'm humbled by your presence, and I'm grateful that you are here. You shared your Monday morning with me. Wow. We need to talk about this. Perhaps we should talk some more about this, right? Because this is something that a lot of us have questions. And you probably are going to ask me what happened with that young lady I told you about, where she and her husband, the guy left the job. They fired him. Yeah, they had to find out he had a whole history. They didn't do the due diligence. They sent him out, and she stayed. Her husband eventually told her, you don't have to work. He said, I'll pick up the slack. But she's like, I don't really want to put any strain on our marriage. And, we have 2 young children and so on. So she was able to, what she did was she went to part-time. So she's not doing the full 40 hours anymore. That was the compromise that came out of it. And her husband apologized. He said, baby, I had no idea. It's why we need to talk at night. You're married, right? Turn the devices off. Talk to each other. Support one another. You married them. You might as well work it out, right? Does marriage work? That's where it works. We're too dismissive. Cancel him. I don't like what he said. What did you mean by that? For better or for worse? Tomorrow we're going to talk about that. For better or for worse? You like that? For better or for worse? What does it mean? What does it mean? For better or for worse? What does it really mean? Are we really into that? Or are we into the wedding for the $35,000 and the gender reveal stuff I see on Instagram? Or people, oh my God. You know what? I'm done. I am done. You can tell I'm not liking it. No, because you spend $35,000 on a wedding and it can last 2 years. You should give me my money back. Right? What did you think this was? A fairy tale? This is real life, right? This is real life. Children are hard work. My nephews are staying with us for a couple of days, and my 2 daughters are asking me, how did you do this? They're like, oh my God, it takes a village, right? And they're like, how did you do this, Mom? How did you do this? kind of happy that that happened because now they have a better appreciation. But they're like, I need some support if when I choose to have children. How did you do this? Right? For that's the for better or for worse part. So you soldier through it because now you're both older, so now you see it. You had to do what you had to do. It probably needs more energy now, right? Right? Thank you. So shout out to all of you who are still raising young children. And if you're a grandparent and you're raising young children, I lift my hat. I'm humbled. And to those of you who are parents and you are raising your children, God bless you. I'm humbled. God bless you. Right? God bless you. Thank you, everybody. I love you. You're pulling on me. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Be blessed. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much. This was some good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Right? We'll do this again. For better or for worse. Ain't that something? For better or for worse. Wow. For better or for worse. Think about that. For better or for worse. Wow.